What's up guys, and welcome back to another daily outlook. So in these daily outlooks I will go over my main pairs that I will trade and see where the market is headed to. So let's begin with the DXY and let's look at the daily time frame. And as you can see, we just took liquidity under this demand zone, which a lot of people were looking at and possibly were buying on top of. So a lot of people were just buying on top of this demand zone with a stop loss underneath and then targeting the overall supply over here. So what happened, their stop losses got hit right now, and that means that we took liquidity under that low. So for now, what is our daily fractal? We just broke our daily fractal in towards the downside. So what we are now waiting for is this daily fractal high to get broken, and then we know, okay, let's see some possible upside in towards the 50% of the 4-hour trend. So as you can see, the 4-hour trend is bearish from this point on. So what I'm now looking at is a pullback in towards that 50%. So the previous versus discount, right? So we have this leg down, and now I'm looking after a daily fractal break, of course, to pull back in towards that 50% zone. Okay, but first we need to see that daily break of structure or fractal break, because now the supply is still in control and we could still just trade down lower, right? So once we break that supply, we create demand, and from that demand we could trade up higher. So that is exactly what I'm looking at. Now going over to EURUSD, what can we see? We now have created a ascending wedge. So what can we see? 1, 2, and now we have a third tap of this channel. So once we see a fractal break right now, then I will be looking for shorts in towards the downside. Once again, where do I want to look for shorts? In towards that 50% level, right? So what can we see? That this now is our fractal low, this low. And if you do not understand fractals, make sure to check that out as well. But this now is our fractal low, and once we break this fractal low, then we will be ready to look for shorts in towards that premium, in towards those discount prices, right? So we can also see that we are inside this supply, and we now have a second tap in towards that supply, meaning we took out early sellers above this high. Okay, so this was a bad high, and I will make a video about it soon, but this was our bad high, and then this becomes our good high once we break structure in towards the downside. So once we trade under this fractal break, then we can look at some possible shorts. Okay, but as you can see, after this impulse, a pullback is coming, and now price is slowing down. So once we see breaks in towards the downside, price should be ready to trade down lower. Going over to GBPUSD, as you can see, we traded above the highs multiple times. So now what do we have? We have this supply zone, which is in control. And if we break another fractal break in towards the downside, right, then we should trade down lower in towards what? In towards those discount prices or that 50% level. So after we see another fractal break, we know, okay, the highs are going to be respected. We can see that downside from here, right? So this is also what I'm waiting for, and we could of course get a swipe and then this will happen, but we need to see what price is going to do next. But of course, wait for confirmation before going short. Going over to AUDUSD, what can we see? That we are 4-hour bullish and that we touched discount prices over here. So we are ready to trade up higher in towards that swing high. So what do we now need to look at? When are we scaling in to trade in towards that high? Okay, what can I see? We have a refined demand over here, but we also have a demand zone over here. So at the moment, our 4-hour fractal was bearish over here, and then we turned bullish on this high. Okay, so what happened? We created a demand zone, right? So now we could of course trade up higher again, but wait for the DXY to give confirmation to break down lower, because if the DXY trades down lower, then AUDUSD trades up higher. Okay, so keep that in mind, and also look at the order flow, because the order flow is still bearish, or it's bearish and bullish, because as you can see, let me explain that real quick. We had a demand zone which got respected because we traded up higher. We created a new demand zone which got respected because we traded up higher. And now we have this demand zone which is in control. So from this point on, we have bullish order flow, and we should just respect this demand zone also and just trade up higher. But what can we see? We also create a supply zone, and now we have this supply zone which is also in control. So then again, we could trade down lower. So that's why I'm waiting myself on some more confirmation, or maybe this refined demand, because then some liquidity gets taken out too, right? Because the DXY, in my opinion, just like I explained, is in a nice point of interest to go long. And if the DXY or the US dollar goes up, then AUDUSD drops down lower. So what I'm now expecting is some possible lower prices in order to go for that swing high. So I'm being patient here and waiting for some more development on this pair. Looking at NZDUSD, however, I'm looking at shorts. So why am I looking at shorts? Because as you can see, we are 4 hour bearish at this point in time, and what could we expect? To trade down lower. Okay, so if you look at the daily, of course, we are now inside this daily supply, and we could get a reaction from that supply trading down lower, as you can see over here. Now keep in mind, guys, on the weekly, we should trade up higher in towards the highs. And why is that? First of all, we still have an open supply open where we could trade towards. And as you can see, we had a demand being created, and this demand is still in control. So from this point on, we could trade higher, right, from this demand zone. And as you can see, we reacted beautifully from that demand, and we could now trade up higher and take out those highs. So that is definitely what I'm looking at. But for now, we can look at short terms short inside this supply. Okay, so when I go over to the 4 hour, what am I looking at? Okay, we might get a short possibility in towards the demand zone, or the 50% level. The 50% level of this move, then a possible pullback in towards that 50%, and also this demand zone, of course. And from here, we could just trade up higher with that weekly order flow, or that weekly demand, which is going to push price up higher. Okay, but for now, what can we see? That we have bearish order flow, because we had this 4 hour supply, and now we have this 4 hour supply, which is in control and could push price down lower. And you can see that we also have that demand open, so perfect price point to trade towards. So what I do, I scale over to the 1 hour and look if there's any possible entries, right? So I am willing to trade in towards this liquidity point, which is perfectly at that 50% level. So what I now can see is that we tapped this overall supply zone, right? And we took some liquidity above these highs. So I'm now waiting for confirmation in order to look for shorts. What I'm now looking at is this 1 hour high. I'm waiting for that 1 hour high to break. What happens then is that this then becomes our fractal low. This low becomes our fractal low. And then what I will wait for is that fractal break in towards the downside. Then I will take a short in towards that liquidity point over here, and that 1 hour or 4 hour demand, right? So this is exactly what I'm looking at on NZDUSD, right? But for now, wait for confirmation before going short. Going over to the yen basket, what can we see on the daily? Of course, that we are daily fractal bearish from this point on, and that we took some liquidity above the highs, so we could see a reaction, of course. Now keep in mind, guys, on the weekly you can very clearly see that we have bullish order flow, but of course some reaction is due because of this supply, right? So we could get a reaction from this supply. So what can we see on the 4 hour then, or on the daily first? We are daily fractal bearish. And what is our fractal low and fractal high? This is our daily fractal low, and this is our daily fractal high. So what should we do? We should respect the daily fractal high and break down lower, because we are daily fractal bearish. So what I'm now expecting is just some downside for today in towards a daily fractal, and from there we could then again react from the new freshly created supply to trade down lower. Okay, going over to the 4 hour, we need to see confirmation so we know that price is ready for this low or that daily fractal to get taken out. So what can we see? This is our 4 hour fractal low. So what I want to see is a real clean break in towards that fractal. So I want to see body candle close. And why is that? Because as you can see, we also have that monthly and weekly level located at that fractal. So what could happen is we break the fractal and then we just shoot up higher. So I really want to see the confirmation that we get a candle close. And why is it that we could shoot up higher? Because the monthly and weekly open, also the daily and yearly, but for now it's a monthly and weekly, are acting like a support and resistance point, which could push price up higher. So that's why I want to see a real good close under that fractal in order to know that price is heading down lower. Okay, going over to Euro Yen, what can we see? We are 4 hour bearish, right? Over here, this is when we broke the swing in towards the downside, and now we grabbed liquidity above the swing high. If you don't know why this is a break of structure, make sure to watch my explanation on the market structure. But for now, I'm looking for more upside on Euro Yen, because the yen basket is almost ready to drop, right? Of course, what I would see or would like to see is a tap in towards this amount, then some confirmation, and then we could go long. But of course, breaking that swing structure so we become bullish, then a pullback in towards that daily or 4 hour demand, then we can trade up higher. This is what I'm looking out for, but this will not be for today, but possibly be for next week even, or maybe later this week. So this is what I'm waiting for on Euro Yen. Going over to GBP Yen, what can we see? That we are rejecting the lows. So as you can see on the daily, we kind of trade in towards this demand zone, and what did we do? We grabbed liquidity under this low. So from that point on, we saw a reaction in towards the upside. And what can we see on these lows? We fail to break the low. So as you can see, normally we should just break down lower, just as we have been doing over here, breaking down lower. But over here, we fail to break the low, and that is an indication that we could trade up higher and take out the liquidity highs. So if I then go over to the 4 hour, I can clearly see that we take liquidity and then we shoot up higher. We take liquidity and then we shoot up higher. So this is indicating to me that some buyers, or maybe even institutional buyers, are stepping into the market and buying the market in towards the highs, right? So this is also what I'm waiting for, or what I'm looking at. As you can see, I'm now inside this swing position to trade up higher, but we can see that we react from this demand zone. And what did we do? We broke the 4 hour fractal high over here. So we created new demand, and from this new demand zone, we now are order flow bullish, and we could then again trade up higher in towards the highs. So you could you could take a swing position in towards the highs, or you could wait for some lower time frame confirmation inside this demand to take a smaller trade in towards that liquidity. Okay, so that is it for GBP Yen. Going over to USD yen, as you guys can see, we are now inside this demand, of course, on USD yen, and this could push price up higher, right? We can also see that we are 4-hour fractal bullish at this moment in time. And what does this mean? We create new demand and we could trade up higher. So as you can see, this is our demand, and from this demand we could trade up higher. Now keep in mind that the order flow is still kind of bearish, because you can see we had this supply and now we had this supply in control, so we then again could possibly take trade down lower. But let's see what price is going to do. The only thing that I do not like is that this demand is still open, and I will go over that in a second. But I think that we could see another swipe, then confirmation in order to go long. But because look at the weekly, okay, we tapped inside this weekly demand, but we can see that we have a refined weekly demand zone, which is not tapped, right? As you can see. So possibly we could see that swipe once again and then trade up higher. But of course, we could already trade up higher from the overall demand zone. So that is why I'm waiting for more confirmation on the 4-hour in order to really know that we are going to trade up higher. Okay. So that is what I'm waiting for. And once we have enough confirmation, I will possibly look at, of course, the 50% level once again. Going over to AD yen, what we can see is that we grabbed liquidity under this low, and now we grabbed liquidity once again under this low. So we swiped the early buyers, which were buying after grabbing the liquidity under that low. So once again, we take liquidity, we have initial buyers, now we swipe initial buyers, and now the real move in towards the upside can happen. But what are we waiting for? The daily fractal or daily order flow switch in order to trade up higher. But that will possibly take another week, so that is what I'm waiting for. But for now, I'm waiting indeed for more confirmation, and that will not be for today. But once we do that, I will look out for this liquidity to get taken out and trade in towards this open supply zone, which looks really good to trade towards. Going over to NZD yen, you can now see that we rejected the low. So what did we do? We did not break the low, but we rejected upwards. So if we break this high once again, then we know, okay, we created demand and we could then trade up higher again, okay? So looking at the 4-hour, let's see. Okay, we still have that bearish order flow. So what happened? We have a supply zone which got respected. We have a new supply zone which got respected. We have a new supply zone which could be respected and then trade up higher, possibly. But what can we also see? That we are trading inside demand. So at the moment, demand is fighting against supply. So if we see a clear break above this high, breaking supply, making the order flow bullish, then we could already start looking at possible long setups. So that's also what I'm waiting for, to break the supply, which is this high over here. Okay, going over to Swiss yen, what I'm now looking at is, of course, longs, because as you might know, I am inside this swing long position to trade up higher in towards that weekly, I think, weekly supply zone, which is visible over here. So this is what I'm looking at to trade in towards, and then again take liquidity above this high and trade in towards that supply. So going over to the daily, what I'm seeing is that we had first our fractal break in towards the upside, or let me explain it better. We are daily bullish. So what are we looking for? For bullish momentum or longs. So we see that we take liquidity under the lows, and then once again, guys, we see that initial reaction in towards the upside. So those early buyers got swiped on this low, so we take their stop losses which were under this low, and then we get a fractal break in towards the upside and another fractal break in towards the upside, indicating to me that price is really ready to trade up higher. So if you guys do not understand the fractal breaks, make sure to check that out as well. But let's go over to the 4-hour. You can clearly see that after grabbing liquidity, we get a nice reaction, so buyers stepping in. We once again grab liquidity, get a nice reaction, buyers are stepping in, and once again over here we see those reactions happen. So for now we could then trade up higher, of course, right? Because the order flow is also bullish, because we respect the amounts, and we then could trade up higher in towards those highs. So what I'm now waiting for is, after that we grab this liquidity, I want to see a 4-hour fractal change once again to know, okay, price is ready to take out the highs. Of course, we can see the monthly rejection and could trade up higher, and the weekly only has been trading down, so we could expect to trade up higher above that weekly open. So yeah, for now, still waiting for the 4-hour fractal to break, which is this high over here, and then I would be ready to look for possible long setups or scale-ins of this position. Okay, going over to my last pair, CAD yen. As you can see on a weekly, we just grabbed liquidity under this low, and of course after grabbing a major liquidity we could see a reaction in towards the upside. Going over to the daily time frame, what do we want to see? Because of course we are not just randomly going to buy. No, we want to see confirmation. What is confirmation for me? The daily fractal, which is located at this high. So I'm now waiting for that daily fractal high to break, and then I will be ready to look for swing position longs in towards possibly those liquidity highs. Okay, so for now this supply zone is still in control, so longing at this point in time is not valid. So that's why I will wait for that fractal break or that supply to break, and then I will be ready for longs. But once again, this is the daily time frame, so that will be for possibly later this week and not today or even next week. So that was it, guys. I hope you liked it, and see you in the next one. Ciao.